So, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome author and associate clinical professor of dermatology at Columbia University, Eyal Levit. So, welcome, Eyal.
Thank you very much, Karen, for giving me the opportunity to meet with you and to talk to your
Audience.
people. Yes.
Thank you. So, firstly, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. So, can you please share with us your journey into the profession of dermatology to start off with, just to give some perspective to our
Wow, that will
listeners?
be long, but to put it short, I'm a good trying to be a good child, a good son. And my mom
Yes,
told me go into medicine, and I said, what, but I like athletics, I like teaching.
yes.
I want to do all those things. Like, you can do all those things after you become a doctor.
Okay.
And then as I went into medicine, I actually majored in history. And
Oh,
everybody asked
wow.
me history and literature, and they asked me, why are you doing that? I mean, you're going into medicine. It's like you're not going in the right. What if you don't get in? I was
Yeah.
like, first of all, I will get in
Yes.
because I'm not worse than anyone else who got in. Number
Yeah.
one. Number two is I love history. I love literature. And if we all go in the same path, when we come to our specialty, we will not have anything special to bring into it. And so I was hoping that the wisdom of history, the
Yes.
wisdom of literature, I'll be able to transfer into my communication, which I think is the key when you're talking to patients because they can now look on ChatGPT. Back then, obviously, it wasn't there, and I didn't even imagine something like that would happen. But they can
Mm.
look for the answers to whatever questions they have. But to be able to explain it to them in simple terms and make sure that they not only understand, but they're willing to be partners with you
Yes.
in their healing is something that I think is not only not taught in medical school, but with simple education in science, you cannot bring it in. And that's why often on interviews they ask you, what books do you read? What other extracurricular activities do you do? But people do that just to get in. The point is,
Yes.
do they do it because truly in their heart they love it? So
Mm.
that's what I did. And then afterwards, my mom told me, go into dermatology. And I'm like, okay. So, so I simply listened to her, but it's a long journey where I had to break off. Even I remember my girlfriend was like, you're going into dermatology, but that's all, excuse me, I don't know who's listening, but sexually transmitted diseases, I'm not going to be with you. I'm like, it wasn't Botox back then. So,
Yes.
so, so I was like, well, this is what I'm going into. You take it or you leave it. And she left it and then regretted it. But that's how life is. I don't
Yeah,
regret listening
exactly.
to
The
my mom.
choices one makes, right?
That's what makes us correct. I agree.
So,
Yeah.
what inspired you to become an author of a children's book? Because obviously, the two total polar opposites.
Oh
In
gosh, you look at it as polar opposites, but to me it's one and the same
yes,
because when I'm healing the body, I also try to heal the mind. And now obviously we all know the connection between the mind, body, gut, all that kind of stuff, the immune
absolutely.
system. But back then, I remember even when I was feeling that acne is caused by stress before exams and everybody was laughing, no, it's not true. Now we know it's true. So
Mm,
when we treat someone, we have to treat them wholly. And if
yes.
we make a strong base in their mind,
Mm,
if we inspire them, we can prevent diseases, and this is really the key.
absolutely.
Benjamin Franklin famously said, "An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure," and this is
Yeah.
indeed the case. So, by making their mind um, open, by not constricting it, by taking off the blinders, like since we're going to talk soon about the horse, right? Taking off the blinders from ourselves, we're able to increase our view and strengthen.
Perspective as well, right?
Right, right, and strengthen ourselves mentally. So that was the idea is to empower
Yes.
and strengthen the children. How did I get into it? I was a history and literature major. I loved bringing that into the family. And often on our rides, which sometimes are long, one of the games that we would play is we would have each of the members in the car.
Mm.
choose a random word, and then we have to tell a story from those three, four words right away, and weave
Wow.
the story interesting, and then we'll rate it. How could we have done it better, or whatever it is? Or we would sit down, we'll get, okay, guys, you've got 10 minutes. Here are the three words, write a story, and then we'll read it to each other. So
Wow, that's
that's how
amazing. I
this
love
stuff was
that.
born.
That's amazing. So, what is the connection between your profession and what led you to write The King's Race? So, like, just based upon the title and giving some context to the story.
Within my profession, you see, that's a very wise question, very, very wise question. And I think the connection is more personal
Yes.
than professional, but you are right. It is also professional. And when you're trying to, when you read the story and you see that the horse has an outward appearance of disbalance, of imperfection,
Mm.
and then seeing that that imperfection is actually making you more perfect,
Yeah.
that is something that is key when I try to teach my patients how to handle, how to care, how to heal.
Yeah.
And
And
this
have
is,
compassion too.
of course, of
Yeah.
course, of course, and that's one of the key. If we can make the world a better place, the place to start is the way we meet people.
Yes.
Psychology has proven that when a child that looks pretty, whatever is the aesthetic, you know, norm of the person who rates them, right? If
Yes.
they look pretty, even if they do bad behavior, the teacher in the kindergarten, wherever it is more likely to forgive them and rate them better as compared to someone who may not look
Yeah,
as
exactly.
presentable.
Yeah.
And this is very, very unfortunate, but it is something that we need to accept and understand, just like people with, the Alcoholic Anonymous first
Mm.
need to understand that, yes, we have a problem before they can go and heal themselves. So
Yes.
recognizing it and then not only not just ignoring it and saying, oh, close your eyes and just listen to someone.
Mm.
There's a lot of other aspects. We are realizing our eyes, but what about our mind? There's a beautiful experiment that
Mm.
they do with musicians. They they have a panel of judges listen to a musician, and beforehand they tell them, well, this one is from the conservative, he's won so many awards, and then this one is a new person, but he really plays very well, and it's the same person, and they're playing,
Wow.
and they rate the person who they were told like he's very talented, is very, this guy has awards. They rate him so much higher than the other person. They didn't see them. They just were already given that impression in their mind, and that made them subjective. So when we are understanding the power of vision on our construction of reality, we need to also not forget, and maybe it will be leading us to understanding that there are a lot of other biases, even when we write history. I mean, I was a
Yeah,
history major.
100%.
It's as much as we were trying to be objective, we can't be.
No, exactly. Because you're always going to have someone's opinion sway stronger in one direction or another. So, 100%. So, you work in a very intense profession as a dermatologist, which I'm sure comes with dealing with a lot of difficult and emotional cases. So, do you find that as an author, some of the inspiration has come from the work that you do?
Of course, there's no question. Even the condition that is afflicting the the main hero, Spots, is a
Mm.
condition of skin.
Yes.
But the condition is
Exactly.
right. But the condition is not only skin deep; it's a physical condition,
Yes.
and it's also an emotional condition.
Yes.
So by combining all those three, again, those are it's really impressive, the questions that you're asking, but you, because you understand the hidden messages behind the story, that
Yeah.
when you read it, you really, most people, I did not expect them to really recognize that. So I'm very impressed.
Thank
Very
you.
impressed, Karen.
So, we all know that the world is a mess right now and that you have a passion for putting kindness back into the world. So, can you share with us where the King's Race was birthed and where the idea of each of the characters in this beautifully written book came from?
Well, thank you very much for the kind compliments. The ideas came from history. The ideas came from my personal interaction with people, and the way that it was born was I had the opportunity, like every parent, to come to my son's kindergarten class and bring a book to read.
Yes.
And the day was coming soon. It was actually the next day, and I went to his room and looked for all the through all the children's book in English, and nothing spoke to my heart. And
Yeah.
yes, of course, The Little Prince is a beautiful story, but it's a little bit more, I think, difficult for them to understand. And
Yes.
so I was thinking, and I could not find anything that would have the sonos, the resonance,
Yeah.
and the beautiful inspiration that I felt when my mom used to read me Alexander Pushkin
Yes.
stories, the famous Russian author who was actually um, grandson of a slave that was bought by Peter the Great from the French.
Mm.
And he became the head of his navy, and then his great grandson is becoming this famous author. Anyway, which is another, life is truly, as uh, um, one of the famous children's author said, is the best book. It was from Denmark. Hans Christian Andersen
Oh,
is the
yeah,
guy
yeah,
who
yeah.
said that, right? So drawing from that, I decided that I'm going to write the book. And then I stayed up all night till 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And then the next morning I had to read it. And I when I came to class, I took like 2 hours sleep. I went to the school and I read it, and the different voices of the animals. They were so happy and they wanted to hear more and read more, that it inspired me to go ahead and polish it and complete the story. And that's how it was born.
That's amazing. So, can you share with the audience, without giving too much away, what the story is about, and why, especially, you chose this particular storyline? And you've obviously touched a little bit on it, but maybe if you want to elaborate a bit around what the story is about.
In life, we grow,
Yes.
and in order for us to grow in the right direction, it's important that we approach everything that we see without prejudice.
Yes.
And I'm trying to show the dangers of blind obedience,
Mm-hmm.
of
100%.
prejudice, and the rewards of listening to your own heart. As
Mm.
children, when we are born, we absorb everything like a sponge.
Yes. Very true.
And that's why it is so important to make sure that we absorb and we're taught the right things. And the most important thing is stay a child.
Yes. And stay curious.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Like the song that goes, if you're young at heart, then that's the main thing in life.
Yes.
So
And
uh,
also to think for yourself and be critically thinking too, because I think that's also important because I do think we have lost that a lot. People just pander to narratives rather than thinking or questioning certain things or asking. Um, so yeah, I think it's very important. So
the other thing, sorry, I apologize,
no,
Ken.
that's all
The,
right. Go
the,
ahead.
the other thing that was important is to make sure that they learn from wisdom,
Yes,
and
100%.
they don't consider the old as obsolete, which now in the world of the computer internet and everything at your fingertips. You don't need to ask the old generation, your parents. And one of the pillars, not only of the Bible and the Ten Commandments of respecting your parents, is the way that the structure of the old society was. The older people, even if they were, um, you know, unable physically to add to the community, they were able to mentally to help with their knowledge. And this is what happens with one of the heroes there. He's able to pass on his wisdom to someone who was
Yes.
willing to accept it. And
Yeah.
yet he was like an outcast. So it's very, very important to also understand that there is a reason why sometimes people are building walls, and the
Yes.
way to bring down those walls is difficult, but it's better if we try to do it through compassion, through love, and sometimes by simply opening up as an example for others, as opposed to trying to push someone into your circle.
Yes, absolutely. So, The King's Race is an exciting short story filled with highs and lows and everything in between. So, can you elaborate on what the significance and the power of the messages through the story, and why is it so important for children, especially in such turbulent times?
So the story begins with prejudice.
Yes,
It begins with the high of the potential, and then the lows of what happens when disappointment hits.
yes,
And like you said, there are a lot of highs and lows, and the goal is, how can you make the lows into highs? How can
yes,
you not allow your circumstances to dictate your potential and your future?
yes,
And this is obviously very vague and generalized terms, but it starts with the expectations. We have the famous winner of the race horsing that is expecting with his beautiful wife a child.
mm,
And everyone else is coming over because they're expecting this child to be the next Hercules.
yes,
And then we have, you know, what is happening. And indeed, his name is Atlas. And of course, we know Greek mythology. So Atlas holds the world on his shoulder. And we have a story with Hercules coming over and taking an apple, and he's holding it for a second and then switching back with Atlas. So you can see uh, then Samson coming over. Samson is like a second, kind of like a Hercules. But anyway, this is a lot of mythology going into it, but you don't have to know the mythology in order to understand and love it, because
yes,
as he is witnessing Atlas, the child who is born, he's starting to get disappointed, and that disappointment carries with him throughout the story. And you have the child who so much wants to be loved by his father, and it's
yes,
often something that we see in real life. You have a father and a son, and they are unable to, get that
bond,
special bond. They
yeah,
both want it, but for reasons that are hard to explain, there are always excuses, reasons
mm,
they cannot do it, and the child always tries to make his father proud of him, and you see what is happening and how the interaction is. And it's like you said, it's heart-wrenching when you
yes,
as a mother read the story and you see that he's born with white spots, and she's trying to rub them off. She thinks it's like maybe dirt or something, what
mm,
it is, and it doesn't run off. And then he's crying, and they're like Spartan. In the old Spartan, they're not supposed to cry, because if they cry, that means they're a failure, and then
yes,
they have to be big and strong in order to compete, and yet he's so weak and so tiny. And so he kind of turns his head away from his son. He's disappointed. It's his embarrassment,
yes.
and how it's handled later.
Wow. Very powerful. So, I wanted to talk or to ask about you being an immigrant from Israel to the US, and Was there some inspiration that came from that experience and having the opportunity to achieve and work hard for what you've built?
Yes, yes, definitely. There was a lot of that going into it. And immigrant experience not only came from one immigration, it actually was, you can almost say, three immigrations, but in reality, it was two immigrations and living in different countries.
Yes.
I emigrated. My parents took me with them from Ukraine. At that time, it was the Soviet Union in 72, January, to Israel. And then we lived in Africa for about 7 years,
Oh, wow. Amazing. Whereabouts?
mostly Nigeria, but also
Okay.
Kenya, Ivory Coast. I was actually in a non-school. I was the only white boy in the school.
Wow, that's
And
amazing. Yeah.
one day
Sure.
my mom came over and saw me fighting with the alpha male over there as he's pushing me over this rickety fence that was the only separation between the grass and the precipice, which back then at least it looked like it was really, really far down. And when she saw that, she came too early. She was not supposed to see that. She's like, "You're out of here." And
Yeah.
so she took me into a private school where I was the only student there, and then life went on with that. So the biggest inspiration was the change of the the Jew the from the weak, what we call the Galut Jew, the diaspora Jew, who
Mm.
was meek and was always abused and didn't really have any hope of any pride, to the education that I had in Israel of, yes, you're able to have the future that you dream about. And here in this country, we don't care about your religion or your um, support to one political party or another political party. What we care about is you as a human. So
Yes.
open your wings, do what you want to do. And in school, I remember having Muslim friends. I had, I didn't have in school in Israel Christian in my class, but I had Muslims in my class, and we're all basically studying together, and
Mm.
we all were
And
given the opportunity.
cohabiting in a civil way, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And this was a school that also it was one of the top five schools in the country, and the high school part. And it also had a program for disadvantaged children. And there were a lot of Jews who came from broken families or from families that didn't have money, and some of them became my charge, not as a it wasn't a planned decision, but they kind of wanted to be my friends, and I reciprocated back and started protecting them and helping them in education and everything else. And there is a very interesting idea. It's the idea that when you give, you receive more.
Mm.
And in Hebrew, the word natan or venatnu is a perfect example of the word that doesn't matter which side you read from, you get
Mm.
the same thing. And the word
Yes.
venatnu means to give. And if you flip it around or you read from this side to this side, it's still the same letters, which basically means that when you give, you get as much or sometimes even more. And
Yes.
and this was something that I also got educated in Israel about, and I didn't understand in reality until as a physician I was giving people from my heart, and people saying, "Aren't you depleted? You're giving from your emotions so much all the time." And I'm like, "But I don't feel depleted. I know everybody
No,
says it,
because it's what you grew up with. It's what you know, right?
but it's actually been shown medically that
Yes.
when you give, you receive, and that's because of the hormones, the dopamine, the serotonin,
Yes.
all those oxytocin, all those hormones that are being released, that are the good feel hormones, strengthening hormones, that are even experienced by people watching that interplay. just even a smile that you pass, a hello, a good morning. And that's another thing, I love it when in the South, in America, I would walk around to my interviews and I would say good morning to the person who's cleaning the streets, and he would say back to me, good morning. Why is that not in New York City? Why is it in places that are metropolis, like big center like this? You don't have that. That's something we need to have. That
Yeah,
smile. It
absolutely.
doesn't matter your position. It's a good morning. You're wishing something good to someone, and you get so much more back. And that's another thing that I want people to get back to. Say good morning. I remember
Yes.
when I came back to New York and I was saying good morning to people on the subway and stuff, and they're looking like,
Yeah.
What's wrong? Is he mental?"
It's the same in London. Everybody's just so behind their newspapers or on their phones or whatever. And if you say it, then people kind of think, oh, is there something you want? It's
Right,
very strange.
right. Unfortunate. And that's
Yeah.
that's one of my hopes to change that.
So, with that being said, what would you say your biggest career highlight's been? And maybe you've had multiple, but what really stands out for you?
Wow, that's a tough one. My biggest career, when you say career, is that
Yeah,
life
or
or that's in
career
my profession?
highlight. Like, is there a highlight that you had in your career? Something that really stands out for you?
Well, probably, well, one of the recent highlights in my career was when October 7th happened, and people were afraid to go back.
Mm,
I was able with my community to raise money and to fly over to to meet the families of some of the soldiers that gave their lives to protect the people of Israel.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
And
Wow.
they were kind enough to allow me into their homes.
Sure,
And
that's
when I
amazing.
met with the wives, with the mothers, with the siblings, with the children, and I just asked about the person themselves. And when I listened to the story of those heroes, I
Mm,
was I was flabbergasted. I was like, where are people like that born? I did not know
mm,
people like with that heart existed. How was this country able to generate so many people who's full of heart? And
mm,
it just obviously you need to hear the stories, and that's another mission of mine. And by the way, if anyone listening and would like to take part in that, the book that I decided to write was, and I have some of the stories, is called Portraits of a Hero. Why
mm.
portraits? Because it's different people. They're
Of course.
Christians, they're Muslims. There was one German family that immigrated to Israel, and their son, he's Christian. They're from
Yes.
Germany, and they've given so much to Israel. And he died in action while he was protecting, his country, Israel,
Yes.
and the story about their family, the story about him, the kind of people they are. Some of them would be not even telling their parents, but they would help. One of the mothers told me, for example, that the son at his funeral, this woman, one of the cleaning people, came over, and she had to take a few buses to come to the funeral. And she's like, "Oh, oh, you knew him? What were you his teachers?" Like, no, I was the cleaner. Like, how do you know him? He's like, you don't understand. He always stayed, and he never told his parents. He always stayed late after class. He would lift the chairs up on the tables so it will be easier for her to clean. He would come early
Wow.
in the morning to help her, and he kept it quiet. He never said. And this is just one example of so many other
So
examples where
many.
they did
Amazing.
amazing deeds, but they didn't talk about it. We're so used to showing everything on social media. This is what I
Yeah.
did. Look at this beautiful thing. But there is a beautiful saying in the Talmud that says God appreciates much more small deed done in without pomp, without telling other
Yeah,
people
exactly.
in
Without
secret,
showing that you had to
right?
do
Without showing off,
something.
than
Yeah,
a great deed done with a lot of pomp and a lot of showing off. So, I mean, this is something
absolutely.
I need to learn too.
So, with that being said, with the final question that I have is, what are the three key pieces of advice you would give to others looking to pursue a similar career, and what legacy or how would you like to be remembered?
Uh, Career, I'm sorry, you're talking about in medicine
Yeah,
or
well, just
writing?
in, throughout, in medicine and in your, journalism or, writing. So yeah, if you want to just
Well, just be a
give,
good person.
yes,
Um, it's very interesting that you asked me that because on my posts on my Instagram, whether it is on my professional page or my personal page, which is the Levit Dermatology, my professional, and Eyal Levit MD, my personal one, I always end my posts with the sentence, be good, do good, say good,
yes,
and may good come your way, because people forget that. It's something that I have learned from the Bible, from reading it and for trying to analyze it. And in the story of the horse, the King's Race, I bring that into play to show that there are many lessons that we can learn from the wisdom of the Bible, that is the pillar of our civilization. So what I want my legacy to be, hopefully, to say that I added something good to the universe.
yes, absolutely. Amazing. Well, thank you, El, for joining us today. So, if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
I think the best platform is my Instagram social media. That's something that I was told I have to do, and for a while I fought against it, and then I succumbed to it, I guess I would say. But it's a way to reach more people than you could in face to face. So the Levit Levit 1T, because probably I am bad speller, so that's how we got the name. Levit Dermatology, and or Eyal Levit MD. That's probably the best way to reach out, send a message there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us, and hopefully, we can have you back in the future to see where you are in your journey. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Karen, very much for the opportunity, for amazing, insightful questions. It was really a pleasure. Thank you so much. And for all your listeners and people who watch and follow you, you're very lucky to have Karen leading and opening your eyes and world. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, El. Thank you so much.